The hero's morning began not with coffee, but with a wild surprise. The young man was literally stunned by what he saw. He stood on the doorstep of the university where, on the usually crowded staircase, there wasn't a soul in sight today. The first thing he did was to go to his classroom, which was in complete disarray. At first glance, it would seem that people had left the classroom in a hurry, leaving their belongings behind. The dining room looked the same. It had been left in a hurry, having never finished lunch. It was very strange for the hero to wander through the empty corridors of his institution, where there was usually a bunch of students. There was only one question in the young man's mind. Am I the only one who showed up for the pairings today? After leaving the educational institution, the hero came to the bus stop, but he did not wait for the bus, so he had to walk home. It was very quiet outside. The guy decided that as soon as he got home, he would get some sleep, in case it all turned out to be just a nightmare. After crossing the path to his house on foot, the young man climbed up to the right floor. Opening the apartment door, the hero shouted, "I'm home!" Mom didn't respond, which surprised the kid even more. Now he was not frightened at the horror, for at this time his mother was always at home. His gaze stopped on the clock. The hands showed 14:45. This fact further puzzled the hero. It struck him that he had left the university at about the same time. The young man decided to check himself and took out his smartphone from his pocket to compare the time. It was the same on my phone, 2:45 p.m., Monday the 6th of October. The hero tried to calculate in his head how long it should really be. His journey home took 2 hours and the sun is still in the same place. A sudden thought suddenly visited the young man's head. It's as if time has stopped. The hero stood at the window without taking his backpack off his shoulder. He looked out at the street, trying to understand what had happened. Suddenly the lad heard strange sounds that in the absolute silence startled him. It resembled the flapping of a bird's wings, but judging from the sound, the bird was gigantic. And in the next instant, that sound was replaced by the clatter of a woman's heels against the floor. Behind the back of the hero appeared a beautiful woman. Her appearance resembled an angel. She informed the hero that Earth time had stopped for everyone but him. The young man's eyes almost popped out of his orbits at what he saw. He asked fearfully who she was. Belle laughed and replied, "I'm exactly who you think I am." The guy didn't get her joke. It was like he hovered. At last he ventured to utter his suggestion. "Are you a burglar?" The girl was amazed that he could think such a thing about her. She pointed to her wings and white dress and asked irritably, "Isn't it obvious?" The hero wondered again who this uninvited guest might be. His next guess was, "Maybe you're a cosplayer." The beauty began to lose patience, for he was wrong again. She coughed, trying to regain her composure. At last the girl solemnly announced, "I am a messenger of God, an angel. My name is Lida. She shows up here to explain to the hero what's going on. He is a straggler." The hero was unable to answer anything. He was simply dumbfounded by the events of the day. That word, straggler, brought back unpleasant memories for the young man. It started with a field trip to an elementary school. He was forgotten and left. In middle school and high school, things repeated themselves. This became the young man's trigger for life. He was afraid of being abandoned. He wasn't even called to student meetings at the university. He was always forgotten. Note: an event held among university students in South Korea. It lasts approximately 2 days and is considered a free-form study session, where students spend time socializing with peers of the same major. The angel's news now literally crushed the boy. He fell to his knees and whimpered, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Lida smiled and explained that everyone had gone to the other world except him. The young man looked up at her. He wanted to know why he had stayed on Earth. The angel replied, "Because a great catastrophe is about to hit the Earth. Let me explain what it is first, and then we'll talk about you. This planet is moving to a new level as it has gained maximum experience. Mana will now be available to humans," Lida continued. "You will now have access to the Akasha Chronicles. Humanity will be able to utilize this data. We call this kind of thing status." The hero decided that this explanation was pretty simple, like in computer games. Angel smiled and said she was a good teacher. She continued her explanation. "Along with mana, monsters will also appear. You can't destroy them with ordinary weapons." After saying that, the hero decided that she was definitely a cosplayer. If we were to leave humanity in its current state, the risk of total annihilation would be enormous. God has stopped time and sent everyone to another world. There, people will have the opportunity and time to train in the use of mana. To be precise, their bodies are in a safe place, and the avatars have been sent to another dimension. Through this, people will be able to learn how to resist monsters with energy. That's how they get the basic skills to fight monsters. The hero raised his hand like he was in class. "I have a question. Monsters can't be destroyed with firearms or explosions?" Lida explained. "They are made of high-rank energy. Even a nuclear bomb won't be enough." The young man finally realized what it was all for. The angel asked, Well, isn't God merciful to organize a training of this magnitude? The guy decided it was time to talk about him. What is God's plan for him? Lita's answer infuriated the young man, for she considered it a mistake she could not undo. Belle explained. The portal is already closed, so that's not an option. Your stealth is astounding. Even God didn't notice. The hero's face turned red and he shouted in rage, "How can a superior being be so stupid?" The next moment he fell to the floor, and like a child he started kicking her legs and arms. "I can't believe it. Send me to another world and teach me how to use mana." The angel waved her hands. The merciful God is sorry for your problem and decided to give you a bonus. But the young man didn't want to hear anything. He wished to be in a parallel reality with everyone else. Lita explained in a calm tone, "We won't make it before the catastrophe. The others will be back in 10 years. I'll organize some food. Wait here." The hero was startled by this news, how he would wait alone for so long. He asked the angel, "What am I going to do here alone with myself?" Lita suggested that the boy train to prepare for the monster's arrival. The young man asked, confused, "What's the point if I don't know how to use mana?" The beauty smiled welcomingly and replied, "Just make you stronger physically." The guy wasn't very happy about this prospect. He looked disappointed. He decided to try to insist that he be sent to others, but it was impossible. Then the hero was seized by real despair. The young man screamed loudly, tears streaming down his face. This is how his lonely life on Earth began. The hero's hometown was indeed as if it had died out. There was not a single soul on the streets. The same deserted streets could be seen usually in crowded China. The Champs-Élysées and the Eiffel Tower were completely free of tourists. 5 years have passed since the disappearance of all humans on Earth. Only the lone young man left here by chance continued his existence, waiting for the others to return. He decided to waste no time and took the angel's advice, all these years improving his physical fitness. For 5 years he faithfully attended the gym and worked on his muscles. Meanwhile, others in the parallel universe were perfecting their own mastery of mana. People from different continents became stronger to face the monsters that would soon appear on Earth. The hero wasn't completely alone. Lita could at least entertain him once in a while. Angel watched the boy's actions carefully. She asked, "And how do you not get sick of it? How can you do the same thing for 5 years?" Lita wanted to know. The young man replied a little irritated, "Like I have a choice." The beauty watched the guy carefully, drawing certain conclusions. She thought while looking at the muscles of the young man's arm. "Yu Ilhan has gotten pretty good and stronger. What a stamina he has." People usually have a hard time focusing on one activity, Angel thought. Lita said, "I knew you were an unusual person. It was already clear by the fact that you were able to hide from God's eyes." The hero exclaimed irritably, "As if I did it on purpose." Right now the angel was his only interlocutor. She visited him once a week, keeping him from getting completely bored. Lita didn't just visit Ilhan, she took care of him, cooked his meals. When it was time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, the table in the hero's apartment was automatically furnished with delicious dishes. The young man thought it was even tastier than his mom used to cook. And when the hero finished his meal, the dishes automatically disappeared. It was incredibly convenient. Ilhan informed Lita that the physical training was over. It was time to take on martial arts and weaponry. Angel asked how he was going to learn all this without a teacher. The hero replied that he would find a guide on the internet. "Electricity and the internet works, so I decided to study from videos I've put off in the past," explained the young man. It was strange to the guy. How these 5 years of the internet working, Lita explained it by saying that time had stopped. Yu Ilhan wanted a clearer explanation. Now it was always daytime on Earth, the bright sun shining. The hero decided to train outdoors, perfecting his new knowledge of martial arts. The young man decided to use a stick, for it was a weapon that could be found anywhere. The guy had watched a dozen videos on the internet, and was now trying to repeat the moves he had memorized. He was doing pretty well, like he had been practicing martial arts for a long time. Angel watched every movement carefully. She said, "The basic elements also need to be given time, although you still have 5 years ahead of you." Ilhan decided not to comment on Lita's words, and silently continued his training. The beauty watched the guy with a smile. He's been doing this for 4 years now. Suddenly she suggested, "Would you like me to be your sparring partner? You'll develop faster with an opponent." The hero interjected in surprise. "Are you suggesting I fight you?" Lita nodded, telling the guy not to bother attacking. Yu Ilhan replied, "Although you allowed it, but how can I hit my new angel?" But the next moment his demeanor changed abruptly. The boy rushed to the attack, exclaiming, "Of course I can! Feel 9 years of loneliness and frustration." But his attack was in vain. Lita was born for battles. She threw the hero to another corner of the courtyard with a single blow. Lita inquired, "Got it now? Don't worry and train with me. Injuries are a free bonus." The hero was not thrilled with this offer. Time passed. 10 years flew by. Angel thought that with this level of training, The young man would have no problem overcoming a low-level monster. And when he raises his level, he'll be able to use mana. Lita personally trained him, so there won't be any problems. Ilhan replied, "Taught him. I'd say got it into my head." Belle decided to ignore the whining. She thought the guy did a good job. A lot of things will change once disaster strikes. The hero shook the angel's hand and asked, "Lita, will I see you again?" She replied that it was up to him. After Lita flew into the sky, Ilhan couldn't wait for the X moment. There is nothing left until the return of the people. The hero even put on a costume for this solemn moment. The young man thought, "It's been so long since I've seen anyone but Lita. I'm even a little nervous." He was sorry to say goodbye to God's helper, but the time had come. He closed his eyes, expecting that soon his life would be what it used to be. After standing like that for a bit longer, he felt that nothing was happening around him. The hero dared to open one eye to see why he couldn't hear anything as Lita had already managed to fly high into the air. She decided to look back and see how Ilhan was doing. Suddenly, the angel froze in place. What she saw on the ground surprised her. The hero was still a lone figure in the soccer stadium. The young man looked angry. He wants an explanation as to why no one showed up. Angel returned and said with a sweet smile, "It seems there was a mistake again." Ilhan folded his arms on his chest. He was very furious. The hero no longer held back his own emotions. He shouted, "I hate you. How long do I have to wait?" Tears streamed down his face. "I realize I have no other choice. I'll have to wait again. But it really annoys me." After that day, time continued to flow at breakneck speed. 10 years? 20 years of total loneliness. You could go crazy that way. 50 years passed and no one ever returned. All this time the land remained almost deserted. Nature without the hands of men looked quite wild. Ilhan had no choice but to continue his grueling training. Now the young man's blow scattered the stones. The hero looked at his own hands in which he held the hammer. The next moment, Lita appeared in that clearing. "You're so strong now. I never doubted you." The young man thought about the fact that after 50 years of being single, he had stopped keeping track of time. Angel was concerned about the guy's morale. She asked, "Is something wrong?" Without turning to look at her, Ilhan replied, "I don't remember what my mom looks like anymore." Belle faded her gaze. She was truly sorry. The next moment, the hero began to lose his self-control. He shouted angrily, "How long do I have to wait?" The young man said he was tired of martial arts. Lita shouted, "But disaster could strike at any moment. We can't stop practicing." Angel suddenly realized that the hero was gripped by despair. The young man understood that. The books he had read were enough at his level. Belle didn't want to believe that the young man had given up. She wanted to cheer the guy up by all means. He should wait for the other humans to return to Earth. Ilhan recalled what he had been doing lately. He read all day long. He started with modern literature, then business books. Then came the basic sciences, history, geography, physics, chemistry, art. Time passed, and the literature in the library, which he had not yet read, ran out. It was then that it occurred to the hero to learn other languages. He was going to travel. He started with neighboring China. There was a lot of interesting stuff there. Lita sometimes kept him company. Then Russia, America, and all the countries along the way. He learned several languages. During this time, the guy read most of the books in the whole world. Europe, Middle East, Africa. He visited a bunch of countries and continents. It's been a long time. He read everything. One day, the hero told his girlfriend that this was his last book. He didn't know what else to do. Lita asked, "Don't know what to do, aren't you tired?" Ilhan replied, "Never get tired. There are many things to do before disaster strikes." After several hundred years of loneliness, the hero even continued to believe that people would return at some point. Everything was a preparation for disaster. Lita prayed to God, "Our Father, please bring the men back while Ilhan is still holding on." The rays of the bright sun were breaking through the forest thickets. The boar ran through the bushes on his own. Suddenly a sharp pain pierced his side. The animal collapsed and wheezed. After Ilhan read all the books, he started to try his hand at leatherworking and blacksmithing. The young man said to the angel, "Nothing complicated so far. Let's start with wild boar. By the way, if I kill all the animals, there won't be any monsters to come from where?" the hero asked Lita. Beauty replied, "You may hunt those I have authorized. If you destroy all the animals, the balance of this world will be disturbed." The goddess wanted to add something more about the monsters, but stopped talking halfway through. The young man noticed this. He asked, "Why did you stop talking? You're not teasing me, are you?" Angel advised him to pretend he hadn't heard anything. The hero decided not to argue and continued to deal with the body of the shot boar. Lita thought, "What a strange man. How can he handle everything he takes on?" This has been going on for 274 years. That's a long time even for an angel. It's amazing that someone who normally has no more than 100 years to live can spend so long just preparing for the future. The Celestial was distracted from her thoughts by the guy's words, "Cool, it's done. Not bad for the first time. I definitely have talent, Lita said in shock. You, Ilhan, you are an incredible person. Time passed, but the people did not show up. The waves were crashing against the sandy shore. It was cold outside, and the hero stood by the water in a warm jacket. He had learned to gut not only animals but also sea creatures. Another of his prey was a giant sperm whale. Lita shouted angrily, "It's an endangered species. It's illegal to hunt them." The hero asked if she could close her eyes at least this time. Ilhan laughed and said, "Call me Ishmael." The young man was referring to a character from Moby Dick. Angel exclaimed, "Stop joking, there's no one here to laugh." After 3 years, the young man had learned to be a master leather worker. It took a little longer for him to learn blacksmithing. When you read, everything seems simple and clear, but in practice and without a teacher, it is much more complicated. Sometimes all it takes is one mistake, and the labor you spent a lot of time on will be destroyed. An inaccurate sledgehammer blow, and the sword broke. The young man exclaimed in heart, "I have hands for my buttocks." At first, the hero's swords were constantly breaking. He spent 5 years to create a very simple sword. Lita was nearby at that moment. She wanted to look at this piece of gun art. Smiling, she commented, "You can't even slice radishes with that." The young man replied, "I didn't ask you to cut anything. Give it back." But the angel was against it. She wanted to keep this sword as a memento. She said, "God sent me to help you. Be thankful." Belle affectionately hugged the trophy she had received. Lita was blown away by this talented guy's skills. Over time, Ilhan attempted to create all kinds of weapons. Long swords, spears, axes, hammers, and so on. Another 50 years passed unnoticed during this activity. The perseverance of the hero knew no bounds. He tried to improve in any case for which he took up. He repeated again and again until he was satisfied with the result of his labor. He had a whole lot of time in his arsenal and patience, cultivated over centuries. After working with a hammer for hundreds of years, he finally became a true master blacksmith. He finally succeeded in creating the perfect spear. After 100 years of trying, he had finally created a masterpiece. Lita said, "Your tenacity is really impressive. This is the best spear I've ever seen. But with the advent of Mani, there will be other materials, much stronger steels," Angel added. The young man replied that in that case he would just make a new one. The Celestial never tired of admiring the hero, for he never gives up. After cutting meat and blacksmithing, the lad went back to perfecting his fighting skills. He practiced over and over again on a special simulator and completely lost his sense of time. Lita watched him and thought, Ilhan is constantly improving. Several generations of development in one man. But 1,000 years have passed. Sooner or later, it will reach its endurance limit. Angel dreaded to think what would happen then. Belle thought it would be wonderful to find some new and interesting thing for him to do. It had to be something completely new, something he'd never done before. Relationships with the opposite sex came to mind. She even had time to imagine herself in Ilhan's arms. But then the celestial woman came to her senses. She had no right to think such a thing. Such dreams threw the beauty off balance. She's an angel. How can you think of such vulgarity? But her mission is to help the hero. That's an order from higher authority, not her wish, so it's all right. Lita thought, if he needs help, I'll do my best. At this time, the young man noticed her strange behavior and asked what she was doing. Angel was airborne when she heard Ilhan's voice. Hey, Lita, what's wrong? She decided to pretend that nothing strange was going on. The Celestial was not feeling any. She hesitated to ask what she had just been thinking about. Their faces were so close that they could feel each other's breath on their own skin. The young man wanted to ask something. The angel thought, has he figured it all out? But that wasn't what Ilhan meant to say. He noticed that Lita's sword began to move and glow blue. Belle looked at her weapon. She was stunned, for she herself did not understand what it meant. Suddenly the angel's weapon took on a life of its own. The sword flew out of its sheath and into the air. Lita couldn't believe her own eyes. She had never seen anything like this before. She didn't seem to remember right away what kind of sword it was. When she did, she was completely amazed. It was Ilhan's first sword. She couldn't lose it and spread her wings and took to the sky. The hero tried to stop her, but the angel was unresponsive. Suddenly the young man noticed a definite change around him. The guy looked at his own hands and realized that he was now wearing the clothes he was wearing back then when time stopped. The martial skills simulator began to disappear right before his eyes. The hero immediately realized what was happening. Everything was going back to the original state. Meanwhile, high in the sky, Lita was begging the god not to take that sword away from her. She only took her eyes off her target for a second and glanced at the ground. Angel couldn't believe her own eyes. Had the disaster begun? Meanwhile, Ilhan lost his balance, his body flying. The hero found himself in the air. He couldn't believe he was flying. Lita shouted, Ilhan, wait, this can't be... Belle thought, gosh, this is too fast. We haven't even had time to say goodbye. But the angel was pleased by the fact that the young man's first sword had been left to her. She had managed to get attached to the guy during that time. but she didn't know if they would meet again. Lita was a celestial. First and foremost, she was a girl who fell in love with the person she was helping. They hadn't even kissed. Meanwhile, the hero watched his assistant swiftly withdraw. Would they really break up like this? They have spent so much time together, and now they don't even get a chance to say goodbye. It's a very sudden breakup. Lita thought, I'm an angel, a creature of the highest level. A thought crossed Ilhan's mind. If I reach her level, will we meet again? These two parted with heavy hearts in the hope of being together again someday. The time is finally here. The streets of the cities will soon be filled with people again. Strange lights suddenly appeared at the deserted bus stop, and in another second they turned into people going about their business quietly. A magical light also appeared in the still empty university auditorium. The next moment, the students and the instructor took their seats as if they had never disappeared. People also began to show up at the university's dining hall. The students looked somewhat puzzled. They looked at each other in surprise. The university courtyard was filled with people. Everything was exactly as it had been on that day several centuries ago. Ilhan stood in the middle of the courtyard with his eyes closed. He couldn't believe that this long-awaited day had finally arrived. He was no longer alone. When the hero finally opened his eyes, he saw something strange besides people. A screen with his personal information appeared right in front of the guy's face. Ilhan, human, unemployed, level 1. Title, Titan of Solitude, passive stealth. Strength 72, health 78, dexterity 81, mana 1. When the hero saw this status window, he realized that a major disaster had begun. He heard other students talking. Wow, you can also open a status window here, and it's only been 10 years. Ilhan thought confusedly. So for the rest of humanity, it's only been 10 years. It seems that only for me it lasted that long. The young men were disappointed as their performance from the parallel world rolled back. Everything returned to its original characteristics. The hero couldn't believe his own ears. He carefully eavesdropped on the conversations of others. He felt kind of strange being surrounded by so many people. After all, he had grown accustomed to solitude over the centuries. There was one strange moment. No one noticed Ilhan, as if he was invisible. Active hero skill, stealth, maximum level. Evolution is available. Need materials for evolution. The skill is passive, which cannot be evaluated. The guy didn't understand what was wrong with this skill, why he couldn't manage to turn it off. The hero began to feel panic. He wanted to turn off this skill of his. Ilhan grabbed his head. Was it really his destiny to always be alone? These centuries he had waited so long for people to return, but it was all in vain. Was he to be alone from birth to death? After calming down a bit, the hero decided, I don't care, I'll just go home. Walking past the guys who were chatting with each other, Ilhan felt sad. But he was still excited, because it was wonderful to see people in the streets after spending so much time alone with himself. Time had finally moved on. The sky went from blue to the colors of the setting sun. As the young man closed the apartment door behind him, he breathed a sigh of relief, finally home. The next moment, Ilhan heard his mother's voice calling his name. The woman ran out into the hallway, all the while missing her son dearly. The hero could not look at the woman because during this time he managed to forget the features of her face. The next moment, the guy rushed to hug his mom. They really missed each other. All the memories were revived the moment Ilhan hugged the mom he hadn't seen in 1,000 years. The sunset, which was visible through the window of their apartment, also pleased the hero very much. In the kitchen, the guy could smell the aroma of dinner cooking, the churning of butter in the pan. My father sat at the table and read the newspaper. Everything was back to normal. The man said, God, no news about Haizia. His wife asked him in surprise, You were in Haizia, and I was in Yamen with my neighbors. Their son thought, Still, some things have changed. Dad said Haizia was perfect, but he never found the trait. And my mother said that she couldn't learn to control mana. It was very difficult. The hero already thought that he would not even be able to get a word in, as his mother asked where he was. Ilhan decided it was better not to tell his parents that he had been left on the ground. They would only worry in vain. The young man lied that he was in a town with no name. The boy's father agreed with his wife that controlling mana is really difficult. The woman added, Why was it necessary to take newborns, old and even pregnant women to force them to undergo these 10 years of training? It would have been better to take the young and strong. Ilhan replied to his mom, You can't upset the balance. There was no choice, even though it's not very effective. Suddenly, the young man noticed the surprised looks of his parents on him. He realized that he had said unnecessary things. The mother asked, What do you mean? Efficiency? Balance? The young man replied that he was just guessing. He decided that he should think about what he was saying, or he would arouse suspicion. The woman asked her son how he had done. I heard you can make a lot of money if you learn to control mana well. Monster bodies sell well, Mother informed. And my father said, People like that are rare. but they can definitely get rich. It was strange for the hero to hear all kinds of gamer terms from his parents. Having managed his dinner, he put his chopsticks on the table. Ilhan turned to his parents. "Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you." He dared to admit that he didn't know how to use mana. Upon hearing this news, the parents looked surprised. But the mother quickly mastered her own emotions. She said with a smile, "Okay, then focus on your studies." My father thought it was his genes that were to blame, because he wasn't doing so well himself. The hero was glad that his parents took the news so easily. He decided that it didn't matter now. After the evening, the guy walked to his room. What he saw literally stunned the hero. On the floor, leaning against the wall, stood a spear of the hero's own making. "Why is it here? I thought the weapon disappeared with everything else." Lita put so much effort into making sure that sword wasn't taken away. Could it really be her handiwork too? The young man thought at a loss. Taking the spear in his hands, the hero decided that it was flawless. Now you won't have to look for something else to fight monsters. At the same moment, a status window appeared in front of the hero's face. "You Ilhan's steel spear. A weapon of a unique class. It has an attack power of 800 and a strength of 500 and 500. A miracle created by man without the use of mana. Its durability is equal to that of a medium-level monster bone weapon." The young man was surprised by the performance of his weapon, but he didn't realize if the performance was good. He decided not to get frustrated and start by gathering information. Diving into the web, the hero noted that there were many new posts. Ilhan was surprised to see something new. After returning from the other world, people immediately rushed to post all the information they received on the internet. First, he needs information on how to level up and how strong you need to be to defeat monsters. It seems like an ordinary person could handle a level 5 monster. In the other world, you had to rise at least to level 7 to become a low-ranked fighter. From level 10, you could get the classes, archer, swordsman, and so on. From level 50 onwards, strong fighters start to be able to get a second class, and the third class of fighters is at the 100th level. From that point on, a person is considered a national treasure. Because of the hellish conditions of getting third class, no one ever reaches fourth class. Most people think that 4th and 5th grade is the level of a dragon or Bahamut. Ilhan decided that this was the only way to find out anything else useful. It would be worth asking around at the university. The hero looked out the window and tried to remember how many years ago he had last been in a couple classes. Somehow the present hasn't changed much, unlike the rest of the world. Suddenly, the young man realized that he already missed Lita a lot. Suddenly, the guy's eyes went to his forehead. He heard someone's voice. She'd be happy to hear about that. Ilhan looked around nervously. He wanted to realize who it was that was talking. The voice explained, "I was sent by the heavens to help you, to teach you how to use mana." The young man looked furious at this intrusion. But in the next instant, he finally saw the intruder. The sight was overwhelming. The stranger replied that he was no intruder. This time, the hero was visited by another angel. The celestial decided to introduce herself. Her name is Erta. The hero was disappointed by this visit. Was it really again? A messenger from a god has burst into his life again. Erta said that mana was difficult to control, so God sent her to help Ilhan. The angel was very small in size. She added, "That's why God creates avatars, to send them to another world for 10 years of training." The young man replied, "It's clear, but it didn't do it for me." Erta reiterated once again that that was why she was here. "Someone wanted me to help the lagging Ilhan," Angel explained. "She said it's not fair to leave you to your own devices, when you've put so much effort into training. Lita asked me to send an angel to help you, to teach you mana control as quickly as possible." The image of the beauty appeared in the hero's mind. She had not forgotten about him. Ilhan asked his new acquaintance why Lita hadn't come herself. The Celestial explained, "The management was concerned about the close relationship between a high-level angel and a human. That's why they sent me." The young man replied that he understood, and thought to himself that he would like to see Lita at least one more time. Erta said that the young man looked nothing like the one her friend had told her about. Suddenly, the guy noticed the Celestial's eyes turn bright blue. She scanned him, surprised at his even fitness and appearance. Erta thought that the hero didn't need the angel's help. He could destroy the weak monster with his bare hands. Angel remembered Lita's words. "Ilhan needs to be taken care of. He's been alone for 1,000 years. He's the only one who can't use mana. Don't you feel sorry for him?" Then my friend's face resembled that of a kitten trying to beg for food. Erta decided that Lita was just pretending to be an innocent angel. The Celestial then sighed, accepting the fact that there was no choice, since the mission had already been assigned to her. She told the boy that he had done a good job of training his own body. She's here to teach him how to use mana. The guy looked confused. He didn't understand how to get started with this kind of training. The miniature angel flew up to the young man and stepped on his head. Erda said. I only need to be near you to activate it, for I am a supreme creature. All mana-related stats will increase 10 times faster from my presence. Even 1,000 years spent with Lita didn't accomplish anything, since the two catastrophes didn't exist. Celestia added, I estimate it will last about a year. The hero was annoyed that an angel was sitting on his head. He asked, Are you going to sit there all this time? Belle explained, I'm enchanted. The lower creatures won't notice me, so don't worry. But that wasn't what bothered the guy at all. How am I going to shower? What about my love life? Angel replied that there was nothing to hide. The hero wanted to at least be alone in the bathroom. Yu Ilhan saw the problem as more than that. Due to Eartha's constant presence by his side, the young man would not be able to view 2 terabytes of his treasures. The Celestial replied, I am not concerned about the affairs of lower beings. Don't worry. The hero was stunned because it turns out she can read minds. She didn't care. Let the young man breakdance or rumba dance, and he could play his games all he wanted. Ilhan shouted, Wait, what did you say at the end? How do you even know about that? Angel replied, The higher creatures are not interested in how the lower ones have fun. The guy didn't believe her, for she was smiling. Now the hero wished that Leda would come back to him. But that wish was unfulfilled. He and Arita would spend a whole year together. The next morning the young man went to the university. It was the first training hike in 1,000 years. Erda nestled comfortably on the guy's head. The people around her couldn't see her. Ilhan asked the celestial woman, Are you really going to sit there 24 hours a day? The angel replied, The others can't see me, and you're not paying attention. The hero replied in despair, As if I could. Stop dangling your feet in front of my eyes. The young man exclaimed, Is it just me, or is the angel mocking me? Suddenly, the guy noticed people in military uniforms walking past him. Ilhan thought, Life hasn't fully returned to normal yet. It's unlikely to come back. The state is preparing the army for the appearance of the army. The young man wasn't sure how effective it was. Lita had said that only mana would work against strong monsters. Here was the university. How long it had been since he had been in its classrooms. Once on the notions, Yu Ilhan felt invisible. None of the students paid any attention to him. The guy activated the system window, again trying to turn off the stealth skill. The character looked frustrated, as there was no way to turn it off. Erda thought this skill was not a bad acquisition, a nice bonus. The two communicated without words. Ilhan thought irritably, More like a loser's foray. Suddenly, the hero heard a conversation between 2 students. Did you get the skill? One asked. The other replied, One, but barely. The young man inquired of the angel what it was they were talking about. Erda explained that they combined a small amount of mana and negligible combat experience. Students are trying to get something that can be used against monsters in this way. The hero thought that the angel especially was very dismissive of humans. Erda replied, From the perspective of me, the supreme creature, even the combined skills of all the humans here can't compare to your disguise. That's why she said his skill wasn't bad. But the young man still thought he was for losers. Ilhan looked sadly at the other students who already knew how to use mana. Suddenly he realized that he could easily eavesdrop on conversations with his own skill. Not even his gaze is noticed by anyone. Now the hero no longer looked so frustrated, as he could easily get information. The next moment, the young man sensed a conversation that caught his attention. The speech passed a girl who had once studied at their university. She was called the Empress. Nobody knows exactly who she is. One of the guys said, We'll all know when the monsters show up. The hero concluded, Some female student showed outstanding talent in the other world. That's why she got such a name. The students were wondering when the dungeon would appear. They were sure that with their peers, there was no way to get there anyway. Yu Ilhan thought, Oh yes, there are dungeons that have restrictions. The young man immediately inquired of the angel, What is a dungeon? Erda explained that it was a real trap. Her answer surprised the hero. It was a trap that God himself created. There are real monsters in the dungeon. First, God sends food to the dungeon to lure the monsters there. When enough of them gather, he closes them inside. Unlike monsters, humans are free to enter and exit as long as they meet certain requirements. A dungeon is a place where people can hunt relatively safely. Ilhan was stunned by this information. He asked the Celestial, Then why not just lock all the monsters in there permanently? It's not like they won't be able to get out. Belle explained that dungeons have a lifespan, so people should clean them up in time. Then there are the overly smart monsters that don't fall into these traps, the monsters that can break them. And some are so clever that they have learned to create their own traps for humans. That's why Erda recommended always being on guard. At that moment, the instructor walked into the classroom. All the students went silent. The man walked to his podium and decided to start the lecture by checking attendance. The teacher started calling one name after another. The professor gave you a long lecture that doesn't fit the subject matter. You need to adapt to a changed world. The organization united on these has already banned the free use of manam. Controls have also been put in place on the raising of rovens. China and other powerful nations have focused on monsters and how the world will change under the influence of mana. Depending on Korea's action, many firms will go bankrupt, but at the same time others will enrich themselves. The professor continued to narrate. At this time, Ilhan thought, so much water. I came here to study. Is it even worth paying that much money for such an education? What will a bachelor's degree mean in the new world? That's when mana usage will become much more relevant than some paperwork. Until there are mana-related items in the program, Angel said, the best way to train is to hunt monsters. Ilhan replied that he didn't want to do anything dangerous. We're at the initial stage of the disaster. The monsters are still weak. It's better to kill as many of the weak ones as possible while we have the chance to raise the level in mana. Celestial added. The character reminded him that he was at level 1 and couldn't use mana at all yet. Erda wanted to say something, but was silent for half a word. After thinking for a bit, she finally reported, you have excellent physical strength. It'll be enough for monsters below the 25th. The young man was not frightened, but rather startled by this information. He acted like he didn't know he had great physical strength, much to the angel's surprise. Suddenly the beauty noticed something and decided it was great luck. She informed her ward that he would now have a chance to practice. All the students across the room were looking at something through the window. The young man, along with the other students, went to the window to get a good look at what was going on outside. It turned out that the university's courtyard was infested with giant insects. The people as well as the hero himself looked scared. The disaster had begun. Ilhan had been waiting for this for so long and dreading it at the same time. Time X is finally upon us. Monsters are flooding the earth. Even Erta, who had seen monsters before, looked stunned. The goddess said the training was complete. Now humanity will have to survive on its own. Questions were heard in the crowd of students. What should we do? Where should we run to? Why haven't the army and the authorities reacted yet? Someone suggested teaming up for a hunt, but all the students were scared. They saw through the window as someone became the first victim of the monsters. That was the last point. The crowd panicked. Everyone rushed to escape. Only Ilhan, who had an angel sitting on his head, stunnedly froze in place. Tears appeared in the young man's eyes, wondering if he had been left alone again. Heavenly Lady commented on the hero's condition. I didn't expect anything else from you. But the boy quickly pulled himself together. He began to trot his gaze around. Erda inquired, do you want to fight them? The young man replied, yes, they look weaker than a sperm whale. Belle decided to explain that monsters are different from normal animals, and the skin is incredibly tough, and they are stronger. Then she added that these are damaged below level 20, so they shouldn't make any problems for the hero. Ilhan at this time tore off a wooden leg from a chair. This would be his weapon. The young man waved the wood around a bit and decided it would suffice. Erda thought, he has a strong spirit and strong muscles. There won't be any problems until level 25. Meanwhile, the hero continued to swing his temporary weapon in a concentrated manner. His movements were so active that the angel could barely keep his head up. Ilhan decided that the makeshift stick needed to be improved. Having done so with improvised materials, he was satisfied. Erda asked, you made a suitable weapon on your knee. Have you been trained in the crafts? The young man replied with a smile. Is it really that noticeable? I've had plenty of free time. The Celestial remembered Lita's words. It's not like he can't do anything at all. He can't be abandoned again. Angel thought her friend was exaggerating. It was the result of extreme training. The hero had only one regret now. He should have brought his spear with him. For a low-level person to reach such heights is a sign of talent and skill. Ilhan asked Erda, my disguise skill won't work if I start attracting attention? I would like to hide my identity somehow. The beauty replied that a mask would be enough. Meanwhile, in the courtyard of the university, monsters were destroying everything around them. The professor's monument was cut in half. These creatures resembled mantises, but were much larger and much stronger. The hero didn't hesitate any longer. He went out to hunt and attack the first monster from the air. A mask hid his face, and in one hand he held 4 makeshift wooden spears. The guy's attack was precise. His jump on the monster's neck made it fall to the ground. Then it was a matter of technique. After the first kill, Ilhan gained 800 experience points and reached the 3rd level of stamina. His mana increased by 2, and his strength and agility by 3. The system reported, Taijutsu has reached the maximum level. Evolution is available if materials are available. A level 13 Greater Mantis entry was obtained. The hero couldn't believe that this was what a promotion looked like. He was pleased with his achievement. Levels are Akasha's Chronicle record system, in which you can bet stronger when defeating monsters. By taking an opponent's life, you gain not only a record in the Chronicles and experience, but also his future potential. Ilhan immediately noticed that his mana had gotten a little bigger. This fact could not help but make him happy as well. Erta inquired, "What's wrong with you? Did you feel the pleasure of violence?" The young man agreed, promising that someday she would as well. The next moment, the hero found himself surrounded by monsters of a different kind. The boy didn't hesitate and took up another spear. He managed to exclaim that there were no skills to fight a group of monsters. Angel advised him to rely on his reflexes. It would work itself out. Ilhan decided to heed the advice and rushed to the attack. He managed to cut the insect monster's protective armor in half. After another victory, the system reported 700 experience points gained. Spear mastery has reached the maximum level. Evolution is available if materials are available. Level 11, Big Fly entry received. 850 experience points gained. You have reached level 4. Strength, dexterity, stamina, and mana have been increased by 1 level. Erta shouted a warning for the hero not to relax, attacking from above. The young man looked up and saw a bunch of flying insects that were rapidly approaching. There was no time for Ilhan to think now. He snapped out of his seat with lightning speed. Another monster was defeated. The young man received 400 experience points and a note about a level 7 big mosquito. But as soon as the hero overcame one monster, as another appeared behind him. This time the mosquito drove the guy into a dead end. There seemed to be no chance of escape. The sting of the giant insect was aimed straight at the young man's chest, but instead of piercing him, it bent. Erta was amazed at what she saw. He is so trained that his body has become invulnerable to the proboscis of a mosquito. The hero didn't look scared. He was quick to deal with the danger. Angel believed that Ilhan had crossed the limit of the human body as well. After destroying this monster, the young man continued his first monster hunt. Time, after destroying another monster, he received messages from the systems to increase his own experience. In the next moment, a giant mantis appeared in front of the hero as if out of nowhere. The creature was faster than the guy. It swung to strike. The guy barely had time to dodge. An ant had fallen under the mantis's sharp blade. The celestial warned that more monsters were approaching. The next moment, Ilhan found himself surrounded by a variety of insects. The young man caught himself thinking that he was disgusted to even look at it. The hero exclaimed, "For bug extermination, call Sesko. It is one of Korea's famous pest control companies." As he flew up into the air, he worked both hands simultaneously with the wooden spears clutched in them. The system didn't have time to add experience to him. He had reached level 6. His stamina, strength, and mana increased by 1, and his dexterity by 2. Suddenly something incomprehensible happened, as if a bolt of lightning had struck somewhere behind the guy. It was as if someone invisible was destroying the monsters, helping the hero survive. Ilhan stopped, trying to figure out what the hell was going on here. Looking around, the young man saw a girl with powerful mana behind him. Her clothes resembled those of an ordinary student, but there was a strange piece of jewelry on her forehead. The young man realized that the mage in front of him, he wondered who she was. But Erta advised him not to get distracted and to kill the monsters. The stranger continued to destroy the monsters around her by applying her own energy. Angel said that the girl had incredible mana stats. Otherwise, how could one continuously use lightning strikes? Ilhan speculated. Perhaps she was just raising her level. I'm also increasing my stats. Finally, the young man exclaimed, "The last one left." He gained 1250 experience points and reached the 7th level. The other students had been watching the incredible battle with their mouths open the entire time. Now the hero could catch his breath. He had finally dealt with a whole bunch of low-level monsters. It was an impressive debut. It was at that moment that an entire army ran into the university courtyard. One of the soldiers exclaimed, "Sorry, our car couldn't go up." But the next moment the squad leader froze in place, stunned by what he saw. He couldn't imagine that their help was no longer needed. The military had received information that several insect-like monsters had appeared. What the hell happened here? Meanwhile, Ilhan was examining the remains of the insects. He hoped to find something like the Stone of 4 Souls, which according to legend gave great power to demons. Erta inquired, "You know how to cut up carcasses, don't you? You can find a mana stone inside the body." This information really interested the boy. The angel added that it was in the hardest part of the skeleton. That's where mana accumulates. She could point out the location. The young man took her advice. The military was shocked at this guy's level of training, how he managed to overcome these monsters on his own. The girl who arrived in time to help smiled and remained silent. Meanwhile, Ilhan, with Arita's help, got the mana stone. The angel explained that it was the basic material for all items. For a while, the hero paid no attention to what was going on around him, and when he looked around, he froze in place. A crowd of students gathered around him, all filming what was happening on their phones. The Sky Woman reassured the guy that no one would recognize him, so there was no need to worry. But he was embarrassed. Such a crowd had never paid attention to him. Suddenly, a mage girl approached the hero. She wanted to say something. The hero looked at her and thought she was some kind of alien. She had very large eyes that glowed with witch fire. The beauty tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and asked if the boy could help her with the cutting. It was Ilhan's first meeting with the Empress. The young man didn't immediately find something to say in response to the request for help. And there was not a single thought in his brain, a complete void. But the boy quickly pulled himself together and inquired how much he would get for his cooperation. The Empress replied, 30 nor 40% is yours for your help. Ilhan agreed to her offer without hesitation and got down to business. The students in the crowd began to murmur, is it really the Empress? How did she become so strong in one day? Someone advised others not to get close, as the mage could strike with lightning. The hero, dissecting insect carcasses, thought, it turns out this is the girl from the rumors. She's really strong. Suddenly, Ilhan heard a conversation. Who's that guy? From his palm and rays were shooting out. The young man countered to himself that there was no such thing. The students gossiped that he had killed a monster with a lightsaber. In fact, he wished he had. But that was a lie. Erda inquired, how was it? Good stealth skill. It was enough of a mask that no one could remember what you were doing here. That made the hero feel a little sad. He began dissecting the monsters' bodies with even greater persistence, looking for mana stones. The Empress was pleased with the find. The stone did look magical. It had a purple color. Ilhan told his angel that he was done with this. It was time to get out of here. But the road was blocked by the military. They had something they needed to find out. The head of this squad wanted something from the hero, but he didn't have time to finish the sentence. The next moment, a bolt of lightning struck him directly in the back. The Empress decided to intervene to help Ilhan get rid of the army's attention. The beauty's face was hidden under a mask that was constantly smiling. It was hard to understand what emotions she was feeling right now. The students thought the beauty was cool. Some of the young men in love also wanted to get a charge of the Empress. The hero felt that they needed to get out as quickly as possible before more chaos ensued. But Erda thought he didn't need to worry. The next moment the young man heard the crowd's murmur. Where did that masked guy go? The young man waved his hand, but no one noticed him. The students immediately invented a new legend that he had escaped at the speed of light. The hero looked upset, but the Celestial thought it had ended beautifully. Ilhan thought, how strange, everything is fine, but then why am I so sad? In the evening, the young man returned to his house. He stopped at the playground. Placing the insect body parts in front of him, he scrutinized it all. Erta wanted to know what he was going to do. The boy explained, I want to make some armor. A full kit is hard to do. He hoped to be able to protect at least his arms and legs. The Celestial said, handling monster materials is incredibly difficult. You'd better wait for a chance to meet a real master. Ask him to make something. The hero smiled cheekily. What is she talking about? After all, he is the best craftsman on Earth. Erda remembered again her friend's words about pitying a guy who couldn't do anything. How wrong Lita had been. Angel covered her face with her hand. The young man realized what she was thinking and smiled. In fact, the Celestial woman thought the girlfriend was a fraud who had dastardly deceived her. Erda thought about the fact that in some ways this young man was like a cheater. She asked Ilhan if he knew anything about manacraft. The hero replied that it was the first time he'd heard it, but it sounded cool. Angel smiled. It's understandable since you didn't have any before. The young man grasped the beauty. He decided it was a new skill he already wished to learn. Erda promised to teach him if he stopped shaking her. Ilhan dismissed the winger and apologized for his behavior. Angel figured she hadn't gotten used to him yet, and she began her story. Mina crafting uses mana crystals that look like gems. You can use them to create certain items. For example, weapons or armor with special powers. This craft evolved from blacksmithing, but with the use of mana. The heroes grabbed Erda by the waist again, begging him to teach him the skill. Angel couldn't help herself and let go of his slap, reminding him that she'd already promised to teach him. She said, I must remember to say a few affectionate words to Lita when I'm in heaven again. The young man wanted to know what she meant. The enraged Sky Girl thought about the fact that the girlfriend should watch her boyfriend on her own, but she had the good sense not to say that to Ilhan. She continued her story. Before starting the armor cravat, you need to prepare materials and magic stones or mana crystals with special properties. For example, something that resembles a dragon's heart, the angel explained. The young man looked puzzled, but he quickly pulled himself together and decided that a dragon's heart sounded cool, like he'd gotten into some kind of game. You need to place the magic stone next to you, synchronize, and begin the forging process. After you finish the piece, you need to grind the stone and apply it to the surface. The sand that forms from the artifact will become the base form. At this point, the work of the craftsman is completed. Thus, the forged item becomes magical. Such armor or weapons will add plus 30 points to your attack and plus 50 to your defense. Erta finished her explanation. The hero rejoiced that it was that simple, but the angel pointed out that the base form just increases stats. But there is another kind of crafting. It is the one that can bestow new skills. It is an advanced form. The Celestial thought that this level was much more difficult. With the amount of mana Ilhan currently possesses, it can't be achieved. The young man thought for only a moment, and then with a smile asked to tell anyway. For if you don't try, you won't know, Erta said. To enrich an item with abilities, the craftsman must put mana into the magic stone. If the mana runs out quickly, it won't work, Celestial added. If you put it into magic stones properly, you can create a dream weapon. It will be able to spit ice or flame. In addition, such armor will be able to restore its master's stamina during battle. While choosing the ability and the will of the wizard is important, and one should not forget about the amount of mana and the quality of magic stones. The hero thought about it. He realized that it took a strong will to get what he wanted. He decided to try. Ilhan wasted no time and went straight to work. Irita watched the boy carefully. She thought he had very dexterous hands. It wasn't long before the arm and leg armor was ready. The system reported that the mana craft had been learned. Angel was amazed that he was able to do it even without skill. The hero smiled and said, "Theory mastered, practice left." Erta thought it would have been better if he hadn't said anything. It would have looked cooler. The Celestial thought, but he's right. Grasping the concept so quickly, he really has a talent for adapting. If Ilhan can understand everything else so quickly, he can gain incredible power. She said to the young man, "You've already created protective armor. What do you want to do with everything else?" The hero advised her to just watch. He explained that he wasn't done yet. There was still some magic stone left in the palm of his hand. The hero mentally instructed himself to use it and mana at the same time. He closed his eyes and got to work. The remnants of the magic stone shone in his hand. It was truly incredible. Erta thought in astonishment. He's not going to make an advanced form right away, is he? You don't even know how to control mana. It's useless. Looking at the young man's face, she could see that he was having a hard time. This kind of exercise is very exhausting. But a moment later, some kind of weapon appeared in the air, which looked like a mantis scythe. There were still bits and pieces of the magic stone in Ilhan's palm. The Celestial thought, he can't fail when he's gotten this far. Angel looked at the hero's open palm. She realized it wasn't enough. Deciding to disregard all the rules, Erta added a drop of her mana to the guy. The remnants of the magic stone turned into a whole incredible color with sparkling facets. The young man looked at his own hand and couldn't believe his own eyes. Ilhan looked confused. He couldn't take his eyes off the magic stone. Looking somewhere ahead, he didn't realize what was happening now. A powerful energy stream was swirling around him. The armor that the young man had made with his own hands began to change its appearance. Erta thought confusedly, this is a failure. Her mana didn't help. But the hero's face lit up with a smile. He realized that everything had worked out. Ilhan received a message from the system that his mana craft had reached level 2. The armor took its place on the young man's arm. Now on the playground outside the student's house, the truest magic was happening. The hero decided to test the strength of his invention. The modernized mantis scythe easily cut metal chains. The young man looked at his own hand with delight. He had managed to create exactly what he wanted. Erta was stunned, she realized. The guy wanted to add the mantis skill to his armband. Her thoughts were interrupted by Ilhan's voice. "Now we must hurry," the Celestial said. "That's right. I helped a bit with the mana. But it's unbelievable that you created such an item on the first try. We need to raise your mana and make new items." But the young man said he didn't mean that at all. He broke the swing, so they have to run away from the playground quickly. Angel reported that she could apply restorative magic. She demanded that her apprentice stop now. In the meantime, the news has been reporting on 2 unidentified men who destroyed the monsters and disappeared. Authorities are still searching for the citizens who defeated the monsters. The 2 Song University students quickly destroyed the monsters and disappeared without a trace. The hero heard all this. He told his parents that he had to go to his studies. The kid's mom looked scared. She offered to skip school today. Meanwhile, the TV continued to broadcast. Authorities have labeled people with extraordinary abilities as superpower users. Their level of mana proficiency is believed to be just as high. The woman gained the skill of a mom. Maternal instinct gets a 10-year bonus. Now you can track your son's every move while he's at home. The mother thought it was dangerous outside. There are a lot of monsters out there. The young man thought, Mom's attentiveness is so strong now that I can't do anything quietly in my room at all. He said, "Don't worry. If I see a monster, I'll run away quickly." Meanwhile, the announcer continued to narrate. The government is planning to create a division of advanced mana users. It will be headed by people with superpowered abilities. The mother asked her son to be careful. He promised and advised her not to go out anywhere. The hero decided to go for a walk, so he went to the university on foot. He complained to Artie that he could barely get out of the house. The young man couldn't believe his mom had such a skill, why it was even needed. Angel suggested, maybe to keep an eye on her son? Ilhan didn't understand what the point was here. Belle explained, they say that even in a large group of penguins, a mother will always hear her chick crying. It's the same here, a useful skill for survival. The hero was a teenager. Of course, he was not very happy to be under the close supervision of his mother. Erda noticed the look on his face and wondered what had happened. The boy honestly admitted that it would be a shock to him if his mother didn't notice him, considering the fact that even God hadn't noticed him. This trigger never let go of the student. Celestia decided to turn the conversation to another topic. What do you think about the news? About the government's squad of strong fighters? The young man calmly replied that he was not interested. He doesn't want to work for the government. He puts himself and his family first. Erta agreed. It was indeed better to act on your own. Unnecessary restrictions were unnecessary. Heading towards the university, the young man decided to confess something to the angel. I would like to meet the Empress again, the boy said, dimming his gaze. The Sky Woman looked disappointed. Had he managed to fall in love? A real man? But Ilan exclaimed, that's not the point at all. I have no interest in such things at all since the disaster. I don't even have time to watch Treasure. When he said it out loud, he was afraid he was impotent. Erda added fuel to the fire. She explained, there are times when libido drops after too much physical training. The young man's face turned red and he shouted in rage that he was not impotent. From the outside, it could seem quite strange, because the interlocutor of the hero could not be seen by passers-by. He could have gotten into an embarrassing situation if it weren't for his superpower. Erda said, even if you shout impotent in the middle of the street, no one will notice it. The young man angrily thought, I don't even know if this is a blessing or a curse. Taking a deep exhale, the hero said he had an idea why this happened. The girl who had helped him through the loneliness of 1,000 years appeared in the young man's mind. It's because of Lita. The celestial woman said, well, yes, enjoyed angelic beauty for 1,000 years and lost interest in ordinary women, impotent. Ilhan coughed in anger but quickly pulled himself together. He wanted to know how the Empress had learned to control her mana so well. He has already raised his own level, but he doesn't understand how to use it. But the Empress's capabilities are really impressive. Erta replied, there's nothing surprising about that. God sent people to the other world for training, all but the hero, for his existence was hidden from the universe itself. You, Ilhan, who can destroy monsters with his bare hands, is much more unique than everyone else. Suddenly the angel hesitated half a word, as if she had some kind of hunch. The hero noticed the celestial's strange behavior and asked what was wrong. She explained that she sensed the presence of monsters nearby. A pack of 70 wolves and wild dogs. They are led by a level 35 diamond wolf. The student opened his mouth in surprise. He didn't expect such news at all. He shouted at the Sky Woman, for she had promised that there would be no high-ranking monsters anytime soon. Erda folded her arms across her chest and replied, something strange I noticed even yesterday. I'm not sure why such swarms of level 10 monsters have already appeared on the second day after the disaster. The young man looked puzzled as to why she hadn't said anything to him yesterday. The angel condescendingly replied that she didn't want to share her worries with lower creatures. The hero thought confusedly, Erda really is quite different from Lita. She acts like an understood rich girl, always drawing a line between the high and the low. Lita was different. Sometimes she seemed a little silly to the guy, but kind, like an older sister. Tears appeared in the student's eyes. He really missed her. Erda coughed to draw attention to herself. She wanted to be honest. Ilhan raised his eyes and looked at her questioningly. Erda looked serious now. I believe the earth is out of order. Something strange is happening here. I need your help. The hero stood as if flushed with the news. He did not know what to say. His mind was completely blank. It was scary to imagine what was behind it. Erda said, we have to hurry. I'll explain everything to you on the way. The young man asked to be shown the way to those monsters. The angel told him to move forward. The god teleported people through a disaster approaching another world. There they could learn how to use mana. But the animals have been left here alone for so many years. God thought nothing would happen to them in decades. But unfortunately, even God can be wrong sometimes. Due to an unknown error, the flow of time on Earth has been drastically altered. 10 years on other worlds turned into 1,000 years on Earth. The hero remembered how he waited for the first decade to end, and for people to return. For those 1,000 years, Lita had always been by his side, so he hadn't even noticed how much time had passed. The boy was pulled out of his memories by Erda. They needed to turn right. Ilhan obediently turned, but asked not to pull his hair. Meanwhile, Erda continued her story. Even considering the catastrophe, the animals lived for 1,000 years instead of their normal lifespan. The changes were unavoidable. The hero just ran out from around the corner and saw a pack of wolves right in front of him. Angel was just finishing her explanation. Right now, Earth's monsters are much stronger than those in other worlds. Seeing wolves with bloody mouths, the student decided that the Earth and all its inhabitants were doomed. Erda said that's why she needs Ilhan's help. She was sure the heavens were trying to restore balance, but it would take time. Until that happens, we are responsible for destroying the monsters. Everything will be compensated according to the achievements. The Celestial Woman summarized her story. The two monsters didn't wait for them to finish their conversation and rushed to attack. The hero had time to put on his armor and retrieve his spear, but he found the task quite difficult. Erda looked silently at the wolves, who kept their eyes on their prey. She finally agreed that it was hard to argue with that, but there was still no other option. The young man took a step forward and began to fall downward, right onto the heads of the ravenous wolves. The monsters flew, whoever was where. This was a really powerful hero attack. It was incredible for him to wipe out a dozen wolves with one blow. Ilhan has gained 12904 experience and a level 35 Brown Diamond Wolf entry. He has reached level 9. Guy's strength has been increased by 4, agility, health, and mana by 2. Erda was stunned by her ward's accomplishments. Each day he amazed her more. Angel thought, maybe he's a masochist. Why does he like new challenges so much? Turns out she said it out loud. Of course the hero denied the allegation. It was at that moment that he heard a ferocious growl behind his back. The guy's reactions were great. As soon as he turned around, the dogs flew in different directions. The system immediately reported a level 18 no shelter dog entry was received. The student had a few seconds to catch his breath, but the battle was in full swing. Monsters on the streets of the city were hunting people. Cries for help could be heard from everywhere. Some of the bystanders tried to use the fire layer, but nothing worked. The guy didn't have enough mana to attack. He was paralyzed with terror. The monster slowly approached its victim.